That was a fit of anger.
I have no memory of beating him to death, but I must have.
Chikatilo. Chikatilo, да, Chikatilo.
Episode 3, Andrei Chikatilo.
Chikatilo.
Yeah, fucking hell. Let's start this again. Andrei Chikatilo was a Ukrainian serial killer dubbed the Butcher of Rostov, the Red Ripper, and the Rostov Ripper. He sexually assaulted, murdered, and mutilated at least 52 women and children between 1978 and 1990 in the Soviet Union. He was convicted and sentenced to death for 52 murders in October 1992 and executed in February 1994.
Hello and welcome. This is Chris.
And Christian.
Welcome to episode number 3. As you heard in the introduction, we're talking about the Butcher of Rostov, Andrei Chikatilo.
Chikatilo.
Andy C. As we will do with every episode, we'll give links in the episode description to other books and podcasts which talk about these crimes in much more detail than we are capable of.
Yeah.
We're here to talk about a few points that interest us, maybe some contentious issues, and yeah.
Cool.
It's going to get dark.
It's going to get very dark. Right, so this is one podcast that before we started and we were talking about what subjects we were going to cover, I was a big proponent going, we got to do Chikatilo. Oh, it's going to be great. Yeah, it's going to be great. We've been researching this for quite a while now, and it's got to the point where I never want to talk about this or read anything about him ever again because it's so horrible.
Yeah, it's really interesting on the surface.
Yeah, I mean,
and it is, but he's...
But it's like I've been reading about serial killers for bloody years.
Yep.
But then for some reason I've always known about this guy and you go, oh yeah, he's fine, he just butchered people, blah, 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 the same as anyone. But then like BTK, when you actually look at the details, you just go, oh no. This is just horrible.
Also 52 people. He could have done one a week.
I know.
Got it out of the way in a year.
Yeah, but instead, lazy bastard took like between 78 and 90. I mean,
22 years.
Who does that?
I did maths.
12
years.
You did bad maths.
I did bad maths.
So what are we going to talk about? What disgusting, horrible things about this awful piece of shit do we want to cover?
So, should we touch on how he got away with doing it for so long?
So many times.
So many times.
It's like him. You look at all the serial killers and like you look at the cases. Most of them, it's been one crack in the case. They managed to find him from that, and that's been normally the way it goes. Or the police follow one lead, and it eventually gets the serial killer. With like him and someone like Peter Sutcliffe, it's like no, we're gonna find him many times, but just not not have enough.
We have no idea who it is.
So
when you catch him, you either go through all the documents and go, shit,
fuck.
him. But he's a boring fuck.
Yeah, he's so dull and doesn't even know how to pronounce his own name.
Chikatilo.
Anyway, yeah, so he'd been caught. When was the first time? Let's talk about the first time. Do you remember the first time? He's looking for his notes. Can he find them? I don't think he can. That's my writing.
No, I know. I didn't write down the date.
Well, that's the way you Kindle it, isn't it?
Thing. Okay, right. That's a different book. Sorry, what a dick. So the first time he was arrested?
The first
time he was questioned?
Well, the first time he was... I mean, the thing is, that, especially with Russia, a lot of the time when they say someone was arrested, what that actually meant was the police took you to the station and just asked you a few questions. But it wasn't necessarily on the record. It was asking you a few questions. They write a report about it afterwards and go, we questioned this person. But it wasn't like over here when you arrest someone, everything is logged. So I think the first time he was questioned and the first time he was arrested is the same time here. I think maybe. I don't know.
No, because he was questioned in relation to the first girl he murdered, wasn't he?
Yeah. Wasn't he?
Right at the time, I think, they spoke to him. I don't worry.
That's fine. We're not going to leave.
I love this on Murderpedia. 1936, Andrei Chikatilo got born.
Got born?
Yeah, got born.
Son of a bitch. Just sitting there getting born while the rest of us are out here struggling for food, cannibalising each other.
So he killed his first victim in December 22nd, 1978, Lena Zakotnova. And the same month, he was called in for questioning. But they released him shortly when his wife confirmed the story that he'd been home with her the entire evening. So from that very first kill, He very nearly got caught. And very nearly.
But his wife has been a thing that has been a subject of a bit of questioning, and because she even like when he was arrested finally, she still denied it.
Yeah.
Even though he was saying he did it, she was still denying it. So I don't know whether her denial is not just, oh, I'm covering for my husband, but this cannot be true.
Yeah, I don't think she ever knowingly covered for him. I think she covered for him that day because it broadly made sense. Like, he was home around the time, obviously, but not the exact time when he killed her. But like, he was.
It's not like they would have they wouldn't have the police procedure they have now and have the science behind it to say this person was killed at 8:52 a.m. So he couldn't have been home at that time. Whereas they're going, oh, it died in the evening about 8 or something like that.
Yeah.
So she would have gone and go, was he home in the evening?
Yeah. So I don't think she ever knowingly covered for him, and I think because initially when he was actually finally arrested, they were saying it was in relation to some complaint about some people building a garage near his son's house, and she said that, and then so she that's what she thought it was as well. She said, they're just trying to get him on something. I think the fact that if she was denying it all the way up to after he admitted to it, I think it's just some kind of mental gymnastics to kind of go, well, this guy who is a piece of shit, can't get it up for me, is weird and touch kids.
Yeah, but he might not be able to get it up, but he can finger in his own semen into her to get her pregnant.
Yeah, apparently so. But he might be he might be all of these things, but a murderer he is not.
Well, to be fair, I mean, when you look at, especially like if you don't know about like psychopathy and things like that, and the different kinds of people that would do these things. She's looking at her husband, who's a boring piece of shit that no one really likes, and he's just there just being annoying.
He got bullied by his own students when he was a teacher.
Then again, didn't you used to be a teacher?
Shut up! I never got bullied by my children or my children.
Yes,
my children.
But so he was questioned at the time, let go for a very good reason. Mm-hmm. Like they thought he was good for it. She turned around and said, no, he was home when he said so. At that point, because she said that, no matter what, they didn't have physical evidence.
Yeah.
It was all circumstantial. So, of course, they're going to be interviewing hundreds of people for this one thing. It's not like they had this one person. They have all these people that are most likely known criminals and known paedophiles at the time, and they're questioning them. They go, we got all these people. We checked out that Chikatilo guy we thought could have done it, but look at him, and his wife said no, so forget about that. Yeah. So it's kind of, that one is understandable.
But I also think one of the issues, and we'll definitely touch on this some more, is at this point, he'd already got in trouble somewhat for being a nonce, roboplegic wrongcock. Yeah. He got in trouble for being inappropriate with his young students, things like this. But
that's the thing. Like the whole thing of that was actually one of the kind of phrases they used. Like he was inappropriate. But then when it got to the arrest later on, when he was actually prosecuted, they literally put it down to he molested.
Yes.
So beforehand, they're just saying inappropriate with students because they didn't when he was at that school. And that all came out, and he just got moved to another one first.
It's like a Catholic priest.
But they didn't. They just said
move him.
They were saying he was being inappropriate.
Yeah.
It's like,
well, because if they admitted that something that terrible had happened at their school, the communist government wouldn't have just affected him. They would have punished the entire school, or the hierarchy of the school, all the managers. These things don't happen. In a socialist paradise, do they? These crimes don't occur.
They don't. Murder doesn't happen in paradise.
So what they had to do was just move him on to somewhere else and make him someone else's problem and deny it ever really happened.
Was it? Did it happen again and then he left and then became the problem solver? Well, for the ordering, like was it like for companies that needed working for the government? If companies didn't deliver X amount of aluminium in one order, he had to go to that part of the republic. Yeah, he would deal with the orders, the making sure stuff was delivered, things like that, which allowed him to travel. But you think that's actually quite an important job, and when you're dealing with somebody who's crossing some of the republics in the Soviet Union, so he's going to Uzbekistan, he's going to Ukraine, where he was from, and going to Russia as well. You're dealing with somebody who's quite important, who's quite bland as a person, whose wife is saying, no, he didn't do it. Yeah, of course they're going to let him off that.
Absolutely, he was a devoted communist. He towed the party line 100%. He
Even complained to the party about a load of his
Absolutely.
co-workers and things.
Yes, so like at school, when he was a student at school, he wrote for the local paper, the school paper that was, and I think he wrote for local papers as well when he was a bit older, all just with communist propaganda. Effectively, he would, like you say, he was a serial complainer.
Yeah,
Complained about everyone and everything to the higher ups in the Communist Party.
So,
he
I
was
mean, but
he was a
even
pain in the arse, but he was also a perfect communist in that way because he had drunk the Flavour Aid.
Yes.
It's not Kool-Aid, it was Flavour Aid.
But then you look at he was that kind of person, and they knew he was that kind of person. Even the police would have known he's that kind of person to start off with. Looking into him, they go, right, he's the kind of person that he complains all the time. He's a very strong party person. Of course, people are going to hate him. So anyone who complains about him, like even at the time, he could have had somebody saying, "Oh, he would have definitely done it," but they would have discounted it, saying, "Well, no, they're just getting revenge for."
He's a good communist,
Yeah.
and he's a good party member, and they would feel maybe hard done by because he complained about them.
Yeah, and things, but then you look at that excuses the first time. But then you look at the other times. Wasn't there one where he was caught outside of the woods where he actually killed someone, still had the blood on him, still had a bag on him with the killing tools in it, and was washing his hands and cleaning himself up? Is it a well or something?
It was at a tap at the train station.
A tap at the train station. The policeman asked him there what he was doing, and then just was like, "Oh well, that's fine," because he gave a good answer for it.
Because there was a couple of things there. So this guy,
This is actually the one that led to his arrest.
Yeah.
Kind of led to his arrest in a long term.
in the long term, yeah, it was. They were finally admitting there was a problem, and they were staking out all of the train stations because they'd picked up on the fact that people were often found near train stations and stuff, and near the train lines. So like this policeman, first of all, if he hadn't been late to his post, he would have seen Chikatilo leading his victim off towards the woods.
Yeah.
But he was late, so he missed it. But what he did do was he stopped him when he came back. But apparently a really popular pastime in that part of Russia was to go mushroom picking.
Well, of course, in the middle of the night.
No, I think this
Why
was
not?
during the day.
Oh,
This was during
I
the
was hoping
day.
it was the night.
No.
That'd be even funnier.
No, but it was during the day. Well, let's go for a family mushroom pick. Ooh.
But he's gone on his own, like he's
Such
covered
a-
in blood. Where have you been? Oh, mushroom picking. What's that on your face? Like,
He must have been
did they fight back?
Real fun guy to be with.
Oh, Jesus.
But yeah, so the fact he came out of the woods and he was dirty was not unusual. The fact he had a bag with stuff was not unusual because people went mushroom picking and things.
And there'd be no
but-
reason to ask to look in his bag because he's
No.
getting the right answers.
Yeah, they asked for his papers. He had his papers. There was nothing unusual about that. He had his papers. They identified who he was. And even though he'd been spoken to many times before, they'd never really identified him because his blood type didn't match with the
Cheers.
jizz type.
Sorry, semen. I can't.
The
Being proper on this
the
podcast.
seminal fluid.
The seminal fluid.
So he wasn't high up on their list. So when he gave his papers and they had said who he was, even though he had some red on his cheek, that in hindsight you can go, well, that was probably blood. At the time, the policeman didn't do anything wrong.
And it's easy to look at it in the framework of like now.
Yeah,
like if
hindsight's
somebody was
20/20, isn't it?
but if we were walking in our town now and the policeman asked us that stuff and got away with it, you'd be going, dude wasn't doing his fucking job correctly. I mean, this is in the middle of the Soviet Union in the 80s. I think this was.
Yeah,
that
I think this
happened.
was probably in the 80s.
Where-
But in like a small, tiny train station.
in the middle of fucking nowhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm kind of apologetic towards the police.
Yeah, that guy
during
did
this.
his job pretty. Other than the fact he was late, if he'd
Yeah.
been on time, he would have seen the guy leading someone out.
Not a good party
to the
member
woods.
because he would have been on time.
But other than that, at that point, he did his job correctly, and he did write a report describing the guy with his name, filed it, put it on the desk, and it was ignored.
Yeah,
So
and it was,
another really good opportunity to get him.
But the good thing was, this report actually led to his eventual arrest when when the policeman who did the interview offered up this report again, saying,
Yes.
I actually talked about this previously and interviewed this guy, and the head detective, Issa Kostayev, looked into it further and found this report, and they managed to link to more murders than that one, because at the time they were thinking, they knew that there was probably a serial killer. That wasn't in doubt. They were just not announcing it.
At that point, they had already that detective or whatever had already started linking. Like he'd initially linked the six together,
And he
they
wasn't
were-
allowed to, because I think a couple of them were like, he was dealing with I think just the Russian Federation, but he was linking ones from Uzbekistan and Ukraine. and he was traveling to those places to get their reports.
Yeah.
And I think this one was, I don't know, I think it was in Uzbekistan. That report was done. That's probably completely false, but we'll not fact check it because we're awful. We're awful people.
So in 84, samples of semen were taken from victims indicated the killer had type AB blood. If any of the suspects matched, they were detained for further questioning, but he had type A.
Yeah.
Because it didn't match, so that's something to mention. In the absence of computers, the details of the suspects interviewed were handwritten on index cards and kept in boxes. One of the cards recorded that Andrei Romanovich Chikatilo had been interviewed but was released when his blood type failed to provide a match. That was both in 84. Fucking hell, just murder and murder and murder.
Yeah, but like
murder and murder.
It's all this murder, but then you think that if you've done a murder, done a bad one, done a bad murder, you get arrested, you get released because they say, oh, your semen doesn't match your blood or something. You'd at least have a break. I mean, the most he ever had was like I think 6 months.
Yeah, but I don't know though, because I think the other side of it though, you could say that they've arrested me, they've said, oh no, we're looking for type AB. And you're type A, you'd be like, shit.
Yeah, stop coming on people. Or
They're
come more on people.
Come more on people. Just don't cut yourself.
Yes.
Cut yourself. Nut yourself before you cut yourself. Chikatilo kills a 19-year-old girl named Velina Varga. He killed her while he was on his way to his father's birthday party. Seeing a 19-year-old girl at the bus stop, he offered to walk her home, but instead turned into the woods, stabbed her. After cutting out her uterus and slicing off part of the face, he wrapped the remains in the clothing and left for the party.
See, this is one thing. When we were saying that we're done with this fucking subject, it's things like that. You're going on his way to a party. So he was getting ready.
His dad's birthday party.
That means he must have been late to his dad's birthday party. So selfish, starting off with. But literally went, I'm going to say, like, he was completely a murderer who was just opportunistic. There wasn't planning. It was like, I'm going to try this. And if he didn't find anyone that night, he didn't do it. But it was all like, oh, yeah, this one matches. This one will come along with me because I said, come with me. And the nature of the Soviet Union was you believe it if somebody says they'll do something. You don't automatically assume they're going to be a wrong'un. Like now, if somebody says, oh, come with me. Do you want to go for a picnic in the woods? You'd go, oh, no.
No.
What kind of sandwiches first? And then, do you have cake?
Oh, yeah. So in his last year of freedom, Chikatilo killed 8 victims.
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
I mean, granted, that's not even one a month, so there's a lot of rest days where he's just there going...
It probably takes it out, doesn't it?
No, but it's... I mean, how long do you think one of his murders would have taken? Actually, from the point of leaving the house to getting back.
It would be weekends away, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
Because he would do it. So however long that takes, he would find his victim. He would track to loads of people till he found one. Then he would take them away, and then he would stay away from his home for a few days. So you're talking like it's a weekend.
So he's basically having like a weekend break, like a little like cheap holiday away in his little murder cabin.
Yeah, a little dirty weekend.
It's a little dirty weekend in his murder cabin, getting away from it. Then goes back, goes to work, kisses his wife.
Try thumbs in a softie.
Thumbs in a softie.
Jizz in his hand. Shoved it up there.
Shoved it up there, and it's a romantic time for him.
So I think one of the clear issues with this was because he travelled for his job when he was going around making sure the different parts of the Soviet Union had the material they needed. So I think this is kind of important just to highlight the job and how inefficient the Soviet Union was. A town would produce a certain material. So, say one town would produce,
Steel,
but not just steel. Would produce steel bolts that are used on a machine. That is the one place in the whole of the Soviet Union, and that supplies all of the rest of the Soviet Union of this one bit, this one type of thing. So instead of each city or each region having a few factories that produce everything for that region, each region produces one thing, and it has to go across all of the Soviet Union, which is Russia, Uzbek, Ukraine.
Was that to stop them knowing to stop them knowing what was being built?
No, I don't think so. I think it was just that they thought, I don't know, they just thought that's
a weird
how we
thing
would
to
do it. We would just be like, no, you make bolts that are 3 inches long.
I'm just picturing there's a massive warehouse full of 1,000 tanks, but all of them are in major pieces because they haven't got all the one bolt they need to strap it all together. So they just go, well, we're fucking waiting for this. Can somebody send Chikatilo out?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, some rivet factory. unlike in the fucking up in the north of the country, is required.
But you've got like that's the only one. Like you've got that. Like his job was to go around and get those things. Now, if you relate that to say police procedure and like put it in, you didn't have an overriding policeman who went around checking.
No,
they just had to report the crimes that happened, the people they busted. So they always had to, because of the nature of it, they always had to try and arrest someone.
Yes.
Hence why in his crimes they had arrested quite a few people, put to death one of them, for the crimes, and most of them were. People with mental disabilities from literally, if they go to this mental institute at the time, take someone, they didn't quite fit the profile, they let them go. Then just go back to the mental institute and get someone else until they fit the profile, then arrest them.
Yeah.
And so...
There's a few bits to unpack, I think, on this bit, which is kind of interesting. So one of them is the fact that he had to because of the inefficient nature of the Soviet Republic, he had to travel for his job, which meant he went all around the Republic, which meant he had different republics. He had opportunity to kill. The police then didn't speak to each other. Everything was written down on like cards. There was no computerization and stuff.
And so it was all official.
Really poor. There. Yeah, everyone knew he was there. They knew why he was there. And then that follows on to the fact that if someone was murdered in Ukraine, even if it's the same MO as the one that was then murdered in Russia or whatever, they didn't notice. No one was there to see it. No one was there to notice.
And you wouldn't know unless someone who knew the case would go to that town, to that police station, speak to someone who knew it, and they told them that the MO was the same.
Absolutely.
Which was so like...
And by that point, they've already found someone who's got some like mental deficiencies, and he's already been, and they can't be seen to be wrong. And also, they wouldn't recognise that someone, say, like in like air quotes, normal, would do these crimes. They wouldn't think. They thought that you would have to be
a wrong un.
Clearly mentally subnormal.
Yeah.
To
maybe
be
that shouldn't be called wrong un. That's
to be I don't know. It's fine. But the parlance of the time. You know, so they wouldn't. So there's all these things that occurred at the same time that allowed these things to
because also
happen.
you've got the thing like he probably killed a lot more people than he was. Well, he almost definitely killed a lot more people than he was tried for. But they couldn't prove it. They couldn't find the bodies. And also, you got to think that if somebody goes to a small town and asks them if they've got any crimes that have happened that fit the MO, for their own sake, they're not going to offer one up that they've prosecuted someone for. No. I mean, they did eventually for a couple of them. They managed to find out they killed someone.
They
a lot of them, that's only if they offered up the information. If they went, no, all of our cases are solved, they're all done.
Yeah. And again, like we said, they wouldn't, because if they admitted they'd done something wrong, then they would be punished by the party. So there was zero motivation for them to admit to any wrongdoing or own up, fess up.
Like.
And also the thing, like with Rostov, where he was based, I think it was Rostov. So that was a big kind of, a commuter town isn't quite the right word, but like it had a transient community with massively high crime. So someone disappearing there was not unusual. A body being found was not unusual. People going, travelling thousands of miles and then just disappearing. It would be a long time for anyone to notice that they were missing. Yeah,
also because when he started out, it was really, he did kill women and children, but he wasn't killing women and children that in that community would be of note.
No.
That would be missed. Like, they would just sit there and go, oh, that woman's child's gone missing, whatever. That we'll try and solve it. They're not going to sit there and make it a priority unless it's someone in the party, someone who's actually part of the community that's known.
Yeah. And also, he also chose prostitutes a lot. And he had a really odd weird moral compass for choosing prostitutes because he thought he was above those prostitutes, homeless people, alcoholics. He thought he was above those people. And then when he took them, I think he pretty much was like, he had no respect for them. Anyone that would go off to the woods with a stranger to have sex, he had no respect for. So he would then take them off to the woods to have sex. But then when he couldn't get it up for them, and then they would like mock him, he was being mocked by someone who was much lower than him.
That's the one thing you don't do. I'm sorry, Chris, if you ever get taken to the woods by a creepy old man,
yes,
and he tries to have sex with you and can't get it up or anything, don't mock him.
Don't mock him.
Don't mock him.
Don't.
Just be nice.
Mock him.
No, just don't mock him. Because when you mock him, he might, stab you.
Mock him.
Oh, damn, this is going nowhere.
Wait. Oh, no. Don't come and mock him?
Oh, this is no, I just can't do this anymore. I'm gonna lose you, Chris. You're just gonna do it, aren't you? Just gonna follow an old man into the woods again.
Again.
Yeah, because this is a thing that happens often. But no, when you talk about his moral scale, like he deemed like prostitutes beneath him, then you look at how he has his crimes, how he puts them in order of not importance. That's the wrong one. Where his moral compass is of what's more acceptable than other crimes.
Kind of like his hierarchy of...
Like he deems basically paedophilia. If you're molesting a child, it's paedophilia. They never actually called it that. They called it just molesting his students. But paedophilia he was openly admitting to when he got arrested. He said, no, I've done that, but I ain't done a murder.
I killed no one or nothing.
Yeah, then he basically admitted to the murders. Then he said, no, I'm definitely not a cannibal. Definitely not a cannibal. And they went, well, there's bits missing. And there's this bit we found with teeth in it. Oh, well, I nibbled it. It was a bit spongy. It's a 10. But it's a bit spongy. And then we're going, yeah, but there's all these bits missing. Go, well, I might have swallowed a nipple and a tongue. Yeah, that's it. And that's it. But despite the fact there was so many body parts that were missing, not like just lying on the side, but they're literally missing, where unless he took them and disposed of them elsewhere, which is very possible, he came, when he was raised, he was in Uzbekistan, Ukraine. It was in a town where cannibalism was rife just to survive.
Yeah, it was a kind of a necessary evil, wasn't it? There was massive famine, massive shortages with the collective farms. No one had enough.
But he deems cannibalism as the thing he could not admit to in full. Like he only admitted to it when they had him up against the wall and said, no, this has got your teeth in it. So he had to admit something. There's bits missing. He said, oh, I might have swallowed something, but I definitely didn't do the rest. And it's like, dude, you just literally admitted to 52 crimes and went into them in graphic detail, yet can't talk about the time when you ate some of them.
But I guess playing devil's advocate here, perhaps he did just nibble on them. Maybe he chewed them to feel like the power, to feel with kind of...
Then what did he do with
own them? Predation, maybe? Animals could have eaten them?
Yeah, but...
He just admitted to eating them because he might be being stressed and just wants them to stop asking him the same questions about eating people.
Or he ate them.
Or he's,
When he was arrested, it was I think it was the same year of the fall of the Soviet Union. And everything had changed at that point. Mm-hmm. So there was that whole thing of, what was it called again?
Glasnost.
Glasnost.
I don't know how the pronunciation, but
Glasnost. But yeah, so the whole thing of like openness and things, so that would have actually helped the police procedures to actually find out of other crimes, go to other places. There would have been a new mandate for be able to do everything and for people to be able to share everything, so they're no longer answering to the Communist Party.
And also, it meant that it was a big old 180. It went from the press not reporting on anything to a free-for-all when the press were open to report anything. So reported everything and anything, half-truths, rumour. And they reported it with the same... They reported it the same, so you couldn't tell what you were reading. So we went from no information to all of the information to misinformation.
But then relating to that, and I think a reason... one of the things that the papers have done, which I think still are prevalent to this day, I'm not really sure about it because there's evidence either side, but the psychiatrist, basically, he was kept for 10 days to be questioned. And within that 10 days,
Andrei Chikatilo, not the psychiatrist.
Not the psychiatrist. They had to get a confession from Chikatilo or they would have to let him go. Despite, because as it was at the time, they needed a confession to be able to prosecute. But Bukhanovsky was the psychiatrist. And he was recorded as... on the actual record, he spoke to him for 90 minutes. And that's how long he spoke to Chikatilo for. And that's recorded, that's in evidence. And there's nothing else. But Bukhanovsky then started saying he spoke to him for an entire day. And he credited by his own testimony as being the one that cracked the case. And that he had this file.
Yeah, he seemed quite... be kind about it, but I can't. Full of his own self-importance.
Yeah.
If everything he says is true... then he did amazing work. He did phenomenal work.
I mean, he said he did that report that was 5 years previous, detailing everything about Chikatilo, and that was to the T. And basically, he went in there and for a whole day, read out his entire case, and then Chikatilo burst into tears and told him that it was all true. But then you've got the police officer, Kostoyev, in the 1992 edition of Pravda, stated that, I'll quote him here, obviously it's a translation, but it's quoting the translation. There are people who are pursuing their own selfish interests. I'm thinking of a certain Bukhanovsky, which consults on apprehending criminals. He stated that he drew a portrait of the serial killer 5 years ago, but there is no such document in all 300 volumes of evidence.
So I read about in the Red Ripper book that I read that I think Buchanovsky still that was released not long after. I think my book that I read was released fairly recent, fairly close to the arrest and stuff. But he was still kind of maintaining that it had gone missing, that it existed. So he's very adamant that it existed. He did it. It was there. It was in evidence, and someone is trying to hide it. Is trying to cover it up.
But then you've got Chikatilo, who just before he died, I think in January of '93. Spoke about Buchanovsky and said he already knew me, and when he recounted everything about my life, how people humiliated me, shot at me, and trampled me from infancy, well, it was bitter, of course. I cried in front of him. I said, "How do you know all this? All my life I have never had a friend, no one, and there was no one close to me. He is the one person who is closest to me even now." I cried in front of him and told him everything. I held back nothing. But fair enough, he said that. So that makes you go, oh, obviously Kostev is got a bee in his bonnet and is probably wrong. But you still got the fact that in the recordings there is only 90 minutes of Buchanovsky talking. And his job for those 90 minutes was to solely go into Chikatilo and tell him that there is a medical case for insanity. So, of course, Chikatilo would go along with anything Buchanovsky said to try and get his thing. And even in the court, the judge told him, there's no insanity plea. You can't, there's not going to be one right at the beginning. And he lost his shit. But before that, he was actually in that weird cell. He was fine. It was only on the first day when they said that, then he started acting like a fucking mental, getting his dick out at people, screaming, barking, making weird noises, which made me think that he was relying on Buchanovsky to get that plea. Yeah. So...
yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? Because there's been so much around this whole case. There's so much misinformation. There's so many whispers. There's so much that we don't know.
But also, I don't know
contradictory.
Yeah, but I don't know if anything of that is what I've just said is actually true, because I'm taking this from what Kostev said. Kostev said it was 90 minutes long that he spoke to him. He said why he was there. He said
is
missing.
Very adamant that Buchanovsky isn't everything he says he is.
Yeah, so but what happens if Kostev is lying? If he's the one lying, then Buchanovsky is one of the greatest profilers of all time.
Because the thing is that you could look at it from the point of view of an old school policeman who would... this soft science is not even a science. You know, this guy is he's making stuff up. He's talking about it. He's a charlatan. Of course, he's going to want to discredit this psychologist, and of course, he's going to discredit him because he's not a policeman. He hasn't done all of the legwork. Yeah. So of course, he's going to want to do that. But on the other hand, there isn't any documentation. It is either been stolen, hidden, or it never existed. And all we're left with is their words against each other. What is in evidence? And Chikatilo's deteriorated behaviour whilst on the stand.
Because then you've also I inferred that the reason he started going mental was because of the declaring sane, which I do think is the case.
Yes.
But then you've got the other aspect of why he could have done it for the same reason, but the background to it. The Serbsky Institute, they're the ones that said he was legally sane.
Yes.
And they're the ones, basically his defense attorney came out and said, there is no question that Chikatilo could tell right from wrong. What remains unclear medically is whether or not he was able to control his actions. There should be an independent evaluation of Chikatilo. The Serbsky Institute is an official institute of the same state that is prosecuting Chikatilo, and the ethical reputation of the Serbsky Institute is not without blemish. At one time, it was used for political, not psychiatric purposes. I'm thinking of those cases which people who were perfectly healthy mentally and were declared insane. In other words, the Institute did the bidding of society. And where there is a guarantee that under the pressure of public opinion, the Serbsky Institute had not now declared an insane man to be sound of mind. So the institute that declared him sane worked for the government.
Yeah, and historically, they were absolutely a tool, weren't they? They were a puppet. They would find people insane, so then they could be held accountable for crimes, for actions. Yeah, so
now you've got to think that Andrei had always been Andrei, my friend, Andy. He'd always been protected by the Communist Party, like for a lot of his life, and now this is kind of them completely fucking him.
Yeah, and also, so if you've got that, you've also got the judge who had made up his mind pretty much from day one that Andrei Chikatilo was guilty anyway and was going to die.
Yeah. I mean, that was basically, I don't know whether that was just public opinion or the higher up saying this has got to happen. Like, didn't he come out and didn't the defense say, you're not?
I think the defense asked for didn't ask for a new judge.
Yeah.
And then so the judge went to the prosecution assuming the prosecution would burn his side and said, basically, I think, do you think I'm overstepping the mark? Do you think I'm, and they went, prosecution went, yeah, we think you're overstepping the mark. You're not doing,
And
you're
he
not being
fired them.
impartial. So the judge fired the prosecution because
Yeah.
they didn't agree with him.
Which kind of, it is proof that whether or not he's been told to do it, but the judge was going to declare him guilty all the time. There's no doubt
There was
about
never
that.
going to be a question of insanity. And there is no question that he killed a shit ton of people.
No, I mean, the fact that if it was just a written confession and that was it, you could always say, well, yeah, Soviet Union at the time, he could be a patsy. He could just be a mental. We don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that he offered up new victims and took them to the graves,
Yeah.
no, he definitely did
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
There's no anyone who tells them more about the crimes. I mean, really, it shouldn't have been really a judge.
No.
It should have just been them saying, no, let's just get rid of him now.
I think for me, after reading all of this horrible darkness, the stuff that interests me now isn't the stuff that interested me at the start.
No.
Like at the start, I was kind of interested in a
him.
weird, morbid way in him and what he did. And now I'm interested in everything else. I'm interested in how we got away with it. And I'm interested in what happened in the court proceedings, the theatre of it, like how it was managed, what's true, what's lies.
But it got me interested a lot more in communism and how it operated within society, of how information got from one republic to the other, how they worked in conjunction with them, or how they didn't work, and the effects that it had. Like, you've got to think that whether or not the number is factual with them, but the police came out and said, through the investigations over the years of trying to catch Chikatilo, they caught over 1,000 different criminals. For
Yes.
different crimes, unrelated to the crimes that they found. They happened to find somebody who was a paedophile, and they managed to find evidence separately that he was a paedophile.
Yeah,
and caught him.
because all of a sudden, they were under pressure to find this guy. The police were doing police work on a massive scale, which probably should have been doing
Before,
already.
But then they found a shit ton of people that they wouldn't have found if they caught him straight away. So,
So you're basically saying
I
it
don't
was
know.
worth it?
Well, if you think of, like, say 1,000 people, say 10% of those were true and the rest of them was fake. That's 100 crimes. Everything from robbery to murder. Weighing against 52 women and children slaughtered? No, it's complete shit. No, it's fucking
of course,
it's
of course.
disgusting. Also, the thing about, I think the turning point in this whole research for me was like when I was going, oh, it's really, this is really interesting. He did all this. Oh, this is gross, type thing. Was when I just stumbled on the crime scene photos.
Crime scene photos are awful.
I mean, not since Dharma have I looked at one and gone, well, now everything's ruined. My life is over. I'm just going to be depressed.
I think we'll try and, when we, if anyone is sick enough to want to look at any,
We'll put a link
we'll
to
put
a
a link.
webpage.
We'll-
With
yeah, I
something.
don't think we won't put one on Instagram or anything.
No,
but
please
we'll,
don't look at it though. I
but-
mean, if you don't do it.
not safe for work, definitely. Not safe for life, I would say.
No, not safe
but,
for life.
We'll link to a website that's got them on if anyone wants to see them for themselves.
But I mean, to be fair, it's the whole case is now interesting because it's completely indicative of the fall of the Soviet Union.
Mm-hmm.
It's showing what happened, like him getting away with it for years is basically the communist way. Then you look at the news reporting, but they're the ones that dubbed him like the Red Ripper and the Butcher of Rostov. And bear in mind, they didn't have serial killers in the mainstream, like in the news.
No, well, because up until that point, they would never have acknowledged the existence
And it was
of
a
serial
Western
killers.
phenomenon.
Yeah.
So what was the first thing they did? They embraced the Western phenomenon and gave him a name.
Yeah,
Like
they
you said,
tabloided the shit out of
Yeah,
it.
completely.
Tabloided.
They tabloid. It's a word.
Yeah.
I think. I don't know. But yeah, so that's. But it's disgusting. But let's. I think we should. It's a pretty obvious answer to this. For a maniac factor. I mean, in the cards, he's a 5 out of 5.
Mm-hmm.
Where would you place him?
I think 5.
5.
I think
definitely
5.
5.
He
It's
killed at
close.
least 52 people. He did it over 12 years. He, at the very least, chewed on people.
Yeah.
He actually, something we didn't mention, the killing for him was a byproduct. The killing was just as a result
just
of what
happened.
he enjoyed. What he enjoyed was inflicting pain and suffering on people. What got him hard was pain and suffering. When he was molesting one of his students, I think they were swimming in a lake or some river or something, and he grabbed hold of her and held her for a bit too long. And as she struggled to get away, boing, he got hard and went, oh, this is what I like. And it escalated from there. So that's the thing as well. Like, he killed all these people just because he had a weird fetish. So they died as a result of the suffering, which is what he liked. Plus, then it meant there was no one to then report back of what they said.
But then there's
what
also the whole insanity plea and his relying on it. I think one thing for me that makes me not believe for a second he was insane in that regard was the whole thing of like him cutting out the eyes and them saying, well, did you believe that, you know, the eyes were like recorded the last images? And he went, no, I don't. It was just in case. He's like, I didn't know. And it's like, dude, you're literally covering your steps in case a theory, a weird superstition is true. No, you're literally sane. You're just...
You know what he should have done? He should have listened to Stevie Wonder as a child and made a conscious decision to never be superstitious.
Never be superstitious. We'll do a link to that Bros documentary at the bottom as well.
Also, I just want to point out the fact we're laughing because
it's horrible.
It's so horrible. It's a bit of a relief because it is truly disgusting.
It is, and it's like, of course. I mean, you think about it. Yeah, we're doing a true crime podcast. We're gonna cover serial killers. They're gonna be awful. That's fucking obvious. But I wasn't prepared.
No, before this, I've dipped my toe into it. I've watched documentaries, I've read some books here and there, and I've also done other things with my life.
Yeah.
But preparing for this, I've read and watched almost nothing but Andrei Chikatilo, and it kind of gets a bit enveloping.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I actually watched a few of the films about him. They've done 3 dramatizations of him. And I watched them all, and some of them are factual, some of them are not, and they're just films, and you go, oh, that's cool. Normally with films, when they do a version of a serial killer, what they show in films is a lot more sensationalist, and it's a lot more grotesque than it actually was. Where in this, no, they couldn't film. They literally could not film what they had in there. So they just made it boring, and because Chikatilo was so boring, it means the films are boring because there's no charisma about it. Charisma?
Such a turd.
He's a massive turd. But the good thing, and I think we can take this away as a heartwarming thing, on the 14th of February, 1994, with a single gunshot behind the right ear, that sick fucker was executed. When I was looking into the where are they now thing, I was just saying, I'll see what a few of them are, because the Fred West one was really good. Because we managed to find out, his son was a nonce as well. So it's kind of cool. Not cool, awful, but more of a story, part of the story. With this, because even though the fall of the Soviet Union happened and things were more readily available, the new Russia is still not that open to the West to be able to find stuff. So trying to find out about people is very difficult.
They released a lot of documents back in, the 90s or whatever. And then Stalin, Putin, I meant.
Same person.
Yeah. Putin has then since... he's reclassified them all and stuff. So
it's like when I was looking up Kostoyev, for instance, finding out where he is. Now, bear in mind that he became a Russian government attorney and bureaucrat. That's an official title. I did not know that. And since the Chikatilo case, he was awarded the Honor Lawyer of Russia Award, the Order of Honor, and the Order for Merit to the Fatherland, 4th class.
Fourth class.
And that was 2007.
Distance to go.
But then after that, all there is, he's 76 now. We presume he's retired. No idea. But in his Wikipedia page, and I don't like quoting Wikipedia, but this one just made me happy and laugh a bit. He supports the death penalty for serial killers and pedophiles. Literally, that's in his Wikipedia page, in the very small one that has 3 lines.
Yeah.
That's 1 line.
All right.
And it makes you go, yeah.
He's been shaped by his experiences?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he supports it. He's fine for it. And that's good. And then
when you said he supports, I think it'd be he supports
Chelsea.
Yeah.
But then Alexander Bukanovsky died in 2013. He started a company called Phoenix, which was there to investigate serial killers. And that company was instrumental in finding the chessboard killer.
Oh yes.
So So even if he did lie, even if that was all bullshit that he was saying about Chikatilo, the Federal Foundation, it was a foundation that he set up, had done on to do a lot of good work with the police.
I'm sure he didn't say, even if it was somewhat untrue, I'm sure it wasn't complete lies, and it probably formed the foundation for him.
Yeah, I mean, I also can't find out how he died. Just know he died. 17th of April 2013. About it. And also, like, the bad thing about all of this is that every serial killer leaves a legacy, whether they're caught, executed, shamed, no matter what they've done. His one, Chikatilo's legacy, does live on through other Russian serial killers. Which especially as some of them have been, some of the serial killers have said he was the inspiration for them, and other ones have just been presumed, like the chessboard killer, and the werewolf Mikhail Popkov. Although Popkov completely eclipsed the total, which is now up to 78 victims, and that's recently
unthinkable. Yeah, a lot of those numbers have recently come out, haven't they?
Yeah, another 56 charges. 56. I mean, really? 56? But then that was an extra one that was added on. But then you think that the chessboard killer and the werewolf were two huge big hitters. Heavy hitters? Big hitters? What was it? They're hitters. Well, they're stabbers. Stabbers and clubbers.
They killed a shitload of people.
Yeah, but they're big number serial killers.
Yeah.
Like those sort of, and bear in mind that we're talking since 94. We're only talking about like a good like sort of 20 years that two massive serial killers from Russia have come out as sick, if not in some places sicker than Chikatilo. And I don't want to look at these people.
No, I'm not. Going into this, I thought, we'll look at some more Russian ones. I think we will later.
I do want to look at Mikhail Popkov, only for the fact of if there is any information that comes out from these extra 56 charges. I don't really want to look at all the horrible things he kind of did really that much, not after this. But the whole thing that he was in jail for life.
Yeah.
Yet they brought him out of life sentence and did this. And then said, so we're trying him for another 56. Like, okay. And he admitted to them. It's not like he said, no, this is all wrong. He admitted to them.
I mean, it's good for, hopefully, I hope he's not I hope he's telling the truth. I hope they can, even though it seems pointless trying him because he's already going to be in prison for life, for the families of the people that have lost. And that's thing to remember as well. Like, these are people. These are real people. These are real people's sons, daughters, wives.
But you think like Chikatilo's 52. And now, granted, is 78. A lot of his the people he killed, a lot of their family members will be dead anyway, from the early ones, especially, or if they're runaways, the family won't know. But you got to think each of those one people. If you've only got one person that even knows them, that's friends with them, just one friend, just has to have. You've got like 52 people killed, 52 lives broken from it, and you got like that's a minimum.
Yeah,
you've got literally Chikatilo's effect is going to be in the thousands of destroying their lives.
Absolutely. Plus his own wife and children, son and daughter.
I mean, who are still alive. Bear in mind, his wife and kids are still alive. I do know the son changed his surname.
Yes.
Because the surname was so rare.
Yeah.
Of course he changed it.
Yeah.
I'd do that.
So that's the thing, like, Chikatilo, piece of shit, boring motherfucker, shit at every job he did, thought he was important, thought he was cleverer than he was, dead, fuck him.
So dead. I don't want to fuck him. I just want to hand in some semen into him.
I'm not even a proponent for the
death penalty,
but fuck him.
But then you look at like Popkov, not put to death.
No. But then good because
I like it that they can actually live. Yeah. Granted, a lot of them will just get acclimatized to prison and that's their life and they'll forever be the serial killer, but they won't be able to do anything. But that's good for me. I'm fine with that. I'm fine.
Fine.
But
because now we've got all these you've got the opportunity to solve all these other cases.
But I'm so glad that Chikatilo's execution was just leading into a soundproof room, kneeling down, gun behind the head, bang. There was not like hung in public or any big fanfare where it's like, you're killing the monster. It's like, no, take him to that room and shoot.
It's more like the Japanese way where all of a sudden they take the people like the guys from Shinrikyo.
Yeah. Kill them and then tell everyone afterwards.
Yeah.
And go,
by the way, he's dead now.
Yeah. So yeah, Chikatilo, fuck you. Glad you're dead. Done. But yeah, so end of episode 3.
So thank you for listening. Find us at echoonpod.com.
Use your hashtags.
Facebook is facebook.com/echoon. Twitter is at echoon. Oh no, sorry. Everything is at echoonpod.
Everything.
Hashtag echoonpod.
Or eTunePod.
Whichever. Keep an eye out for merchandise.
There is. We might as well. I think actually by now they should be out. We should have some lovely enamel pins that for for listeners of this podcast, they will be able to get for the price of postage. But we're actually going to do a special podcast that won't be in the episode order announcing it, and it'll be on all the social media. So the 2 people that will follow us, you might get a pin badge out of it.
Here's to you, Alex.
All right then. Bye.
Cheers.